nuclear weapons. President Obama is no different, for he has said that, and I quote, all options are on the table, close quote, in confronting Iran. And once again, the United States at the instigation of Israel, has compelled the UN Security Council to impose crippling sanctions to weaken the resolve of the Iranians to resist Israel's aggressive designs. We can observe a pattern in the war preparations from recent examples, namely Iraq and Gaza. Broad sanctions were imposed on Iraq and Gaza to starve and weaken the people before the military invasion of 2003 and 2008 respectively. If the past is a precedent, then it is a matter of time before the war criminals in Israel and the United States launch another war of aggression once Iran has been weakened by sanctions. However, Israel may have miscalculated the willingness of Turkey to be a partner in its grand design to contain Iran and Syria as envisaged in the clean break blueprint. As it stands at the present moment, the encirclement of Iran, Afghanistan in the east, occupied Iraq in the west, and Turkey in the north rests on shaky foundations. But this may not deter the warmongers from attempting to fulfill their design for a new Middle East. There is already a map showing how the Middle East would be carved out to serve Israel's strategic interests. The maps are shown on the screen, and you can see that the stage before Israel's plans, but after the blueprint is to be implemented, then a new plan of the area in the Near East would be presented to the world, in which Israel has managed to redraw all the borders of these countries so as to serve its purpose of being the dominant nation in the area. It is left to be seen whether Israel's bloodlust for wars of conquest can be accomplished without Turkey as part of the equation as stipulated in the clean break blueprint. Turkey has demanded that Israel apologizes for the brutal murders of its nationals, failing which Turkey would sever diplomatic relations with Israel. Presently, Turkey has ceased all military collaboration with Israel, and a few days ago had declared that Israeli planes are no longer allowed to enter Turkey's airspace. It is too early to say whether these are temporary misalignments or potential major paradigm shifts in the foreign policy of Turkey. The recent actions of Prime Minister Erdogan provide grounds for hope that the forces for peace can forge a broad alliance to isolate Israel and thwart its grand design to wage wars of aggression, to establish a greater Israel, and to be the undisputed regional power. The public dressing down of Shimon Peres, the President of Israel, at the World Economic Forum by Premier Erdogan was unprecedented as even the President of the United States has not dared to rebuke publicly any Israeli leaders. It is in the context of these geopolitical metrics that we must applaud the courageous leadership of Prime Minister Erdogan in supporting the efforts of the IHH peace activists on board the Mavi Maura as part of the Freedom Flotilla to break the siege of Gaza. The supreme sacrifice by the 9 Turkish peace activists will not be in vain, as by their death, the true nature of the Zionist regime, its barbarity and ugliness has been laid bare before the world. Israel is a brutal regime that has no respect for international law, a brutish regime that has no qualms in murdering unarmed civilians on a humanitarian mission, a brutish regime that has created the largest open prison in the world, the enslavement of 1.5 million people within its borders, through blockade and economic sanction of Gaza, a brutish regime that brainwashes its young to be mindless killers of unarmed civilians, men, women, and children, a brutish regime that practices apartheid, a brutish regime that wages wars through deception and lies, a brutish regime that practices and fosters state terrorism. When the Pradana Global Peace Organization visited Cyprus in July 2009 to collaborate with the activists of the Free Gaza movement, we did not expect that our idea of a flotilla of cargo ships and passenger boats manned by volunteers from all over the world would have such an impact on the conscience of the world. Leaders who before had stood aloof and cared not for the sufferings of the Palestinians. Following the invasion of Gaza in December 2008, more than 1,400 Gazan civilians, men, women and children, in fact mostly children, were slaughtered. Over 20,000 homes were destroyed. Schools and hospitals were leveled to the ground. Many countries pledged billions in aid, but the pledges were not translated into concrete action to alleviate the sufferings of the Palestinians in Gaza. It was hypocrisy at its very worst. While world leaders turned their backs on Gaza, peace activists the world over came together to challenge the might of Israel and expose their crimes. George Galloway started the Viva Palestina land convoy, which smashed the land blockade and brought hundreds of truckloads of aid to Gaza. The Free Gaza movement had more humble beginnings. They started by sending small fishing boats to break the sea blockade. On one occasion, their boat was rammed and the volunteers were thrown into the sea to drown. On another occasion, fully armed Israeli commanders boarded the boat, the spirit of humanity, and hijacked it to Israel. The world took scant notice of these happenings. We realized that small fishing boats would not do, and that a flotilla of cargo ships and passenger boats would be needed to challenge Israel's navy. And as they say, the rest is history. Malaysia's contribution in this effort was the purchase of a cargo ship and 2 passenger boats. the former named after the courageous American peace activist Rachel